Welcome to A Cup of Gratitude with Amanda Schaefer. Hi, I'm your host, and I'm so glad you stopped by. This podcast is really for anyone, anywhere, anytime. And it's about taking a moment to slow down and look around and actually see all of the good things that are there. There's no question that asks, is your cup half empty or half full? But I think a better question is, what's in your cup? I mean, a drop of gratitude will benefit your life unimaginably more than a full cup of anything else. So let's settle in and take a look at how we can shift our focus and embrace the joy and the wonder of the life that we have. And once you start, you won't be able to stop seeing the good. And just like me, you won't be able to stop talking about it. And somehow that creates even more. Even in the midst of difficulty, even when it's really hard. Learn how to drink from a cup of gratitude.
Welcome. Today we are speaking with Erica McKinney. She's a hairstylist of 17 years, an independent recording artist, singer-songwriter, and a worship leader. Erica loves music that inspires growth as a better person, music that inspires change, music that causes us to remember what truly matters. Erica loves being a wife, taking care of her and her husband's home. She enjoys cooking healthy homemade recipes that she likes to create herself from scratch, being with family, and enjoying moments to the fullest. Wow, that sounds like a great life. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be speaking with you.
So am I.
I've been looking forward to this.
I truly have too. I'm beyond grateful.
Yeah, this is one of those times, some of the people that I speak to, I really just instantly become friends with. And Erica's one of those people. So I can't wait to introduce y'all to her. So I always like to start at the beginning. And I was wondering if you would tell us a bit about your childhood.
Yes, I will. When I was a little girl, I lived with my mom and my dad,
Mhm.
and until I was about 6 years old, and they separated, and it was as a hard time for my mom and my dad. I remember being loved by very much by them, but
Mhm.
there was a lot of dysfunction and trauma
Yeah.
within their selves. But I had a really great aunt that took care of me, and then later on, she babysat children, so I was with her during that time. So I had a loving aunt, and then my mother ended up marrying a man when I was around 8 or 10, and so they raised us, and I feel like an incredible home. Then I had a
Mhm.
lot of trauma that I didn't realize I had, but I feel like we had an incredible home, and we camped, and my parents rode Harley Davidsons and biked and listened to bluegrass and classical rock. So, we really had really looking in, it's a wonderful childhood. But my aunt, she also, a different aunt, would
Mhm.
take me and my sister to church, and so we would experience on the weekends life with her and praying around a table together, holding hands, working on a farm,
Wow.
and yeah, and going to church. So I had every weekend we had that experience with my aunt. So
That's all.
I feel like that was, really cool. But in school, once I got into middle school, in high school, I really struggled because that's when most people kind of blossom and bloom into who they are.
Yeah.
And I did not know how to be who I was. I didn't know other kids that had the same kind of home life as I had. And most all of my friends that was really drawn to, where they were outgoing and free and happy and dating, playing sports, and I just was completely, uncomfortable to be who I really was. So I
Wow.
didn't know how to do that, and so I was just really drawn to others who were.
Yeah, you
And
had said during our pre-recording call, and I had written that down, that you were drawn to those who were free, and I loved that. That's what you use, free, and by you not really recognizing who you really were, that's got to say that you didn't feel free to be yourself, or maybe because of some of the things you went through, you weren't 100% sure even who that was because of the trauma, because of the changes, and you maybe were just trying to make it through. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
tell
yeah.
me, like, how did that feel? If you had to say how that felt to not really be yourself.
Very awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an awkward feeling because you're like you're in a shell and you're
Yeah.
frozen. I mean, really.
Wow.
And so that's exactly how that feels. Awkward, tense, and in a shell.
Well, I'm so glad you're not like that anymore. You're actually the opposite of that now.
All
But
glory to God.
yes, yes, I was a very, believe it or not, and people that know me will not believe this, but before I accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior, I was timid. I was quiet. I was very much introverted. And now I'm like the biggest extrovert there is. You can't get me to stop talking. Obviously, I have a podcast, but I was just completely different
Wow.
than who I am in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible how God can transform us.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a kindred spirit. I remember not being sure of myself. I didn't know really how to do boundaries or how to have
Same.
a healthy image of who I was. I just kind of was muddling through. Didn't feel
Yes.
like an abundant life.
No way. Me either. I just remember, wanting so bad to fit in, and I loved clothes and I loved beauty even at a young age. I mean, when I
Yeah,
was 3, I could braid hair before I could even tie shoes.
really. Wow.
Yes, yes, I've always just been naturally really good at at beauty, and always have loved clothes. I drew, as a matter of fact, when I was 3, I was drawing stick people with beautiful hair, beautiful lips, and shoes with high heels.
Oh, that's
Yes,
hysterical. Did
yes,
you
and
set up all your dolls and Barbies and things and give them all hairdos?
I'd never messed with my doll's hair. I wouldn't cut it because I was like, no way, I do not want to mess their hair up. But a time when we were talking about my childhood and not fitting in, one of those
Hmm.
times that I can remember not fitting in was in the 6th grade. I had a friend who's, they were very wealthy and they were family. And her mother took her to Washington, D.C. to go shopping for school
Hmm.
clothes. So she came back after Christmas and she said, Erica, you've got to go get your mom to go take you shopping and get you teenager clothes. So I went home, told my mother, and she said, Erica, I'm going to break this to you now. I'm never going to be able to afford what they can. But she said,
Yeah.
I will take you and we'll go look, because I told her about those shoes, and it was shoes that I drew when I was little. And
Wow.
yes, and I can remember going to the store and my mom was blown away. She said, "Oh my goodness." She said, "Those are the shoes you drew." She said, "I'm getting you those." But they were boots
Oh.
with that block chunky heel in the 90s and the
Hmm.
lace.
Hmm.
So,
Wow. That's pretty cool. What a neat memory. And it must have been difficult for her not to be able to do exactly what you wanted, but I think as we grow up we realize that it was her heart to do her best.
yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
now that I'm older and grown, I completely appreciate all of her efforts, her artistic qualities to decorate and be resourceful.
Hmm.
I'm so grateful for that.
I'll tell you, I love to decorate. I love to redo rooms and come up with new visions of how space can look. But in the, I guess, lean years, I learned that paint and fabric go so far in
Yes.
transforming. And so you can find ways to make things special, maybe
Yes.
without, spending a ton of money.
Yes.
Although it's
Yes.
fun to spend a ton of money.
Right. Right.
Now, you had said during our pre-recording call that you feel like you had lost that childlike wonder. And I think unfortunately that happens to a lot of us. But you felt that God wanted you to find that again. How do
Yes,
you
I did.
how do you think you began to embrace that in your life?
Well, what took me down that path of finding that again was, of course, noticing all these people that had this wide-eyed look for
Hmm.
God, like I call it a bright-eyed look. And
Mhm.
children have that. Most children have that. They are just bright-eyed for everything. They get so excited. And I
Yeah.
noticed I had those same eyes. And, God just had started showing me, you lost that, Erica, and I want you to go down memory lane and figure out those
Mm.
places that you lost that. And
Wow.
yeah, and me in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be yucky. I don't want to do this, but I'm going to
Yeah.
because I want that back. So me and God sat down, and in my memory, He took me down memory lane, starting from a very young age, as to where those could have been taken. And the most beautiful thing about God and how
Mhm.
He helped me to embrace that. What should have been a traumatic experience of me going down memory lane turned into an absolute beautiful experience of Him showing me in every case that I had someone to steal from me, where the enemy used someone to steal, kill, and destroy. God
Mhm.
sent a bright eyed light
Wow.
to me. Yes. So I
Yeah.
ended up focusing on those people, thanking God for those people. I sent those people personal messages and thanked them, and they didn't even know what they had done.
Yeah.
But so
That was God's
now
provision for
it
you.
was.
And
Yes.
it's so cool to look back and to see the thread of God's presence and all of the giftings and things that we didn't even really see at the time. That's
Yes. And that's
beautiful.
yes.
That's beautiful. And it's powerful that you were able to pull away and take away the good things and not stay in the trauma. You were
Yeah, and
able,
yes.
yeah,
That's
that's
how
amazing.
powerful God is. And so now when I go into a room, I can go into a room with confidence and be bright-eyed and
Yeah,
not worry what anyone thinks of me, and know that that's a gift God gave me, and
yeah,
I'm not going to allow anyone to steal it.
that's right. Don't you dare. I think it's so important that we are able to live in the identity of one who is truly chosen, truly loved, that we're able to walk in the wonder of being the children of God, in that, looking at the everyday things around us and being so satisfied, not needing all the stuff, not needing all of the attention, just needing Him.
Yes,
And He gives
yes,
us these
yes.
beautiful gifts. Like, He knows what your love language is. He knows what my love language is. He knows each and every one of us since He made us. And He knows what gives us joy. He knows what we're passionate about. And He lets us somehow use that to help other people come to know this freedom that you were looking for. You found it in Him.
Yes.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
Yes, it really is. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Now you're a journaler, right? Because I'm a journaler.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
yeah, yeah.
I have about 20 journals at all time.
Wow. Yeah.
I love them.
I think that's a way for us to do that, going down memory lane all the time and see the things that we sometimes miss. I think that God works in these large chunks of time, and we see things kind of like today or what happened an hour ago. And when we
Right.
journal, do you reread yours? Do you go back?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
So how does that work for you? For me, that's just so encouraging because I see stuff I missed.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And I try to tell people, I try to encourage people to journal. I know a lot of people don't process things the same, but if you do journal, no matter regardless how you process things, it is a documentation of what you've been through. It's wrote down.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, yeah, so when you look back 10 years from today, you're going to see what God was doing in your life in that moment. And so, thank God that I am a journaler, because that is one of the biggest things. Not only do I process what I'm going through, but it also is a reminder of what I've been through and what I
Mhm,
did. Like a year ago,
mhm,
I was looking through some of my journaling. I have journals for different things. I have a journal for what I do during the day so I can hold myself accountable, make sure I get these
mhm,
things done. And I was
mhm.
looking back at 2 years ago, and so I was seeing the habits that I was creating 2 years ago. I
Wow.
still have it documented.
Oh, that's a journal I don't keep, but I think I might start keeping now. I have a lot of them as well, but that's a really cool idea. Is
Thank
aren't we
you. God
always
gave it to me.
Yeah, aren't we always transforming or trying to transform
Yeah,
and be
yes.
less like we used to be and more like Jesus? And
Yes.
habits are tricky, you know. You know, they actually say that it takes 21 days to create a new habit, but it only takes 3 days to break it. I mean, I think that's pretty
Wow.
profound, you know?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
So, as a journaler and as somebody, I just think that's the coolest idea of looking at your habits. I just never would have thought of that. As you've done that, how has that helped you?
So it oh my goodness. It has helped me to be able I had these huge projects that I wanted to get done. And the whole reason I started doing that habit journal is for the exact reason what you said. It takes 21 days to build a habit. And there was a time in my life when I had my salon, I was overworking. So I was a workaholic. And I am not kidding you. I took up all of my day working from
Hmm.
6 a.m. in the morning. I started work on my phone and I would crash usually around 9 or 10. So that's all I did during that time. So I
Wow.
had created some very toxic living habits to the point that
Hmm.
I did not have good memory anymore. My
Mm.
brain and my memory was really suffering, and I had no space to learn anything new, create anything new. So during that time, I it's a long story, but I was able to seek God and figure out how to create new habits. Well, one, I had to put a halt on everything that I was doing
Hmm.
and stop.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I cut way back, cut down to 3 days a week. And so during those 3 days a week, I started doing some journaling and research on the brain and research on habits. And then I was able to a year later, well, a year and a half later, because my recovery took me a while. A year and a
Hmm.
half later, I was able to write down. I had already wrote my goals down, and I realized there's
Right.
only so many hours in a day, so I
Hmm.
had to let go of some things.
That's hard. That's hard.
Yes, it was really, really hard to clear things off of my plate because of people pleasing and the pressure of people wanting me, people doing things. And but
Hmm.
I had realized that I had to do this for me if I was going to be what I needed to be for God, and
Yeah.
if I was going to be what I needed to be for me, what I needed to be for my husband, what I needed to be for my family, what I needed to do for my calling. I had to create new habits and new lifestyle changes. And so I had my goals wrote down, and I said, okay, I have this many hours in a day. I want to remember to take my vitamins. I want to remember to drink the amount of water that I'm supposed to drink. I want
Hmm.
to remember to sleep 8 hours a day. I want to remember to exercise, and
Hmm.
just little simple things. I even made I also had a 1 hour morning routine, so I would make sure I didn't waste time. I had my morning things done because at this point I couldn't remember to turn the stove off. I couldn't remember to turn the lights off. I didn't couldn't
Wow.
remember. Yes, I couldn't
Wow.
remember if I locked my door. And I wanted to be a good wife that my husband didn't have to worry about and watch if I was going to burn the house down. So it was,
Absolutely.
you
I mean, that
know,
says a lot that your brain was so full, that you were
yes.
working so hard, that you couldn't even retain the things you needed for your everyday life. That's amazing. I recently did a little thing. I've done it in a way, but not like what you're saying. I love what you're saying. I'm gonna try it. Where I've given myself challenges like for 30 days, or I did a recent one, I called it the W challenge. And it was just to spend even more time in worship, to spend more time in the word, drink lots and lots more water. I was,
Yeah.
just things that are good for you, working out, making sure I was getting that exercise. And it's amazing when you just give yourself a little something you have to be accountable for
Yes.
and
yes.
write it down. So,
Yes. Yeah, and the thing about this is, so this is what I learned from there was a a guru that I was learning from at the time, Jim
mhm,
Quick. His name is Jim Quick,
mhm,
and he was telling me that there's so many decisions our minds can make in a day, and then they shut off.
Wow.
So we are making decisions constantly. We don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And so what I wanted to do was create a habit. And that way, when I created a habit, the decision making was gone. It just would happen. I would
Yeah.
automatically take my vitamins. I would automatically know to exercise, automatically know I've got to drink this much water. And so I've been doing that consistently for 2 years now. And I'm so proud of myself to look back in my journal and see, wow, I've made these things a habit. This is a part of my life. It doesn't take a decision. I don't have to make a decision. I just do
That's
it.
right. That's right. That's awesome. That's organic transformation, but you had to be intentional. You had to choose it, and you had to make that something that was going to be something you did every day. And now, like you said, you don't even have to think about it. That's awesome. That's good advice for everyone out there. Pick
Thank
some
you.
things, pick some things that you need to make part of your everyday and intentionally do them and keep yourself accountable. I love that.
Thank you.
Now, you said something that I thought was pretty powerful to me when we spoke on our pre-recording call. You said the enemy takes your identity by making you forget your history.
Yes, ma'am. This is what God showed me, that I almost completely forgot who I was and lost my identity. And how I did that, he had, and I really believe this is very relevant today. I believe that the enemy is doing this today. If
Hmm.
we can't remember back of who we were, our identity, our history, it's
Hmm.
really hard to understand who we are today and what we're meant to do today, because a part of learning who I am was going back to my childhood.
Yeah.
And I believe that with history, that, America, we need to know what our values are and what we stand for by what happened in our history. So it's real important that we don't forget it. But the enemy, one of his tactics that he uses, that he used on me, that I see him using on others, is he
Hmm.
wants to get you so busy doing
Yeah.
all these other things that you don't have the time or the space to remember.
I
And
agree with you. I totally agree with you. And that's amazing that you're pointing this out, because I think so many people are so busy they don't even have the time to notice what's happening.
yes, yeah, they don't have the time, they don't have the space. They're completely checked out because they have so many things pulling at their mind that
That's right.
needs immediate attention right then.
That's right. And also you said when you were younger, you didn't really know who you were. Neither did I. And it wasn't until we came to Christ that we really felt like we knew who we were. But I think the other thing the world is doing right now, that I'm sure the enemy is behind, it's pretty insidious, is telling everybody who they should be. You should look
Yes.
like this, you should wear
Yes.
that. This is what your house should be. This is what kind of car you have to drive. All these things that aren't needs. They're not
Yes.
needs. Okay? You don't need a television to live. You don't
No.
need, a cashmere sweater to survive. You don't need Mercedes to get from point A to point B. But the world keeps telling you don't need to be a blonde. You don't
That's
need to have
exactly right.
flawless skin. You don't need to be 99 pounds.
No. No,
And
and
kids
I mean,
growing up are being told that's what you need to be. So how do they ever get to be who they are?
that's right. That is so true. And I have to share a little bit about that, because
Hmm.
during the time that I had to find out who I was, because I lost my identity. And one of those reasons why is because I was following the world and had thought I had to have my house looking like something out of Pinterest, because
Hmm.
Pinterest came about around that time. I thought that I had to have, be the most successful stylist, have the most education, be the
Hmm.
best at that. And because of that, I had to have a car that would get me to all of these places I was traveling to. So, I created this lifestyle. I had
Yeah.
this image in my head that I thought I had to have. Pretty much had to buy everything new because I didn't have the time to do anything on my own. So, therefore, I hired someone and I paid for things. And
Hmm.
one thing that I had to do to create these new habits, well, I had to stop old ones. And the
Yeah.
only way I could do that is to completely stop and cut out things that were getting in my way.
Yeah.
One of those was social media for me at the time, and my phone. I had to cut that off.
A
Another
lot of
thing,
people should do that. A lot of
y-
people should do that.
right. And there's a
Yeah.
time and a place for it when it's helpful and useful. But if your family is in chaos, your home is in chaos, and things
Hmm.
are in chaos, you got to cut out what is getting in the way. And for me at that time, social media was a distraction. It was getting in my way. So I
That's right.
had to cut it out. And
Hmm.
I, took a leap of faith and trusted God, and pretty much went from working, five, 6 days a week, 12-hour days, to 2 days a week, as little as I could get by with. We
Yeah.
downsized as little as we could get by with. I cleaned out my whole house and downsized.
That's
And
amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing. I'll tell you, that'll be something that sets you free. Now, when I moved in to care for my parents, I had to get rid of so many things because the pandemic happened when we were starting to move over after God asked us to take care of them. We had agreed to do it, and then the pandemic hit. And so, number one, I didn't even have access to a moving truck at that time. So we did everything by the carload. But number two, I was downsizing my entire house that I owned and was in for more than 20 years
wow,
to go to my parents' home where I grew up and take over the top floor of their home and put the rest of what I could, in the garage or the shed or whatever. But I got rid of things, I gave things away, and I had to throw some things out. But
yeah.
I don't miss it.
Isn't that amazing? I don't
It
either.
is.
Yeah, I've actually had my house because God told us, I'm getting ahead, but that's okay. We'll cover everything. But God
Yeah.
told me to sell, He told us to sell this house.
Yeah.
So I immediately then packed it up. I said, all right, God, we're selling this house. I packed it up. My
Uh-huh.
house has been packed up since 2018. I just live as minimal as possible. And one thing that I found so freeing, found my identity in, was
Hmm.
God reminded me during those times that I grew up being resourceful. That's a gift. If you
Yeah.
can take, and my husband is gifted in that. My mother's gifted in that. We are resourceful people. We can go and get things secondhand, make them look new. We can
Hmm.
repurpose what we have, make them look new.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
another thing that I realized that I really love alone time. I'm very introverted, so I love to clean my own house. I love
Yeah.
to, yeah, because that's when I talk to God. That's when I think. So for
Hmm.
me, I would rather clean my own house than work, make more money, and pay someone to. Because for me, I feel more in my purpose when I
Yeah.
am doing those things on my own.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's something to be said for the simplicity of the way I think life was always meant to be. Again, I think a lot of what people are filling their lives with is what they're being told they're supposed to,
Right,
or they're looking at their neighbor for some reason, or some other person.
right. Yeah,
Even with being a hairdresser, even with being a singer, even with me being a podcaster or a writer or whatever I'm doing, it's so easy to compare yourself to other people, but don't do it because
yes,
that is just not okay. We're supposed to do the best we can at what we're doing and support
yes.
other people and say, you're doing a great job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's one, actually that's on my lock screen is, remember, you're not everyone else.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
because
love that.
God constantly was reminding me through this whole tear down process, tearing
Hmm.
things down and letting Him rebuild me back up the way He wanted. And He continually told me, do not
Yeah.
compare. You're not everyone else.
Yeah. And there's things God wants to give us that honestly our hands are too full to take. Our lives are
Yeah,
too full to
yes.
take.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that
Yeah.
is so true, and you're right about that. That
Yeah.
our hands are too full to take, and I
Yeah.
believe that you know, I believe that was a form of me losing my identity, being so successful and having to hire people to do things for me. That
Hmm.
just didn't. I just didn't feel connected to my purpose doing that. I didn't feel like me, and when I'm at home, taking care of my home the best that I can. I just feel so connected to my purpose. I feel connected to my mother. I feel connected,
Hmm.
and I'm a much happier person.
Yeah. Now, when you were such a well-known hairstylist in your area, you also had this desire to sing, but you didn't have time for singing because you were so busy being successful at this worldly thing. So, how is it that you came about? You said that God gave you a couple of dreams.
Yes. Yes. So I did have a huge desire to sing. And one thing that I was able to consistently do was lead worship. That was
Mm-hmm.
top priority in my life as much as I could make it. So I was a worship leader, and but that's as far as it could go. I could practice for that, learn new songs constantly for
Mm-hmm.
that, and I did make room for that. But as far as writing music for myself or practicing anything to sing anywhere else, there was absolutely no time for that.
Right.
So during my real busy seasons, because I would do this, it was a constant pattern that I would find. I would be real busy, be real successful, and then be like, oh no, I forgot my purpose. Okay. And
Mm,
so I was doing this constantly. And I saw
mm.
patterns, looking through my journals of being
Yeah.
up and down. But I had a dream in probably 2014. I would say around that time. Yes. No, it was before 2014, as a matter of fact, 2012. So in
Wow.
my dream, yeah, because I know by the hair, and that's how I can kind of, and I have and I have it wrote down.
That's funny.
Yeah, because my hair at the time was not like it was in the stream. My hair at the
Mm-hmm.
time was just brown and layered
Mm-hmm.
and had a
Mm-hmm.
few blonde streaks. So it was probably 2012. So
Of course,
during
as a
that,
hairdresser, you're going to
yes,
remember.
I know the time eras by the
Yeah.
hairstyles.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in my dream, I was walking, I saw my church on a hill, and I was walking by my church, and I was going down into a basement, and I went into this basement and looked in the mirror, and my hair was gorgeous. It was long and had curls, a lot like what you see in a lot of my photos and
Mm-hmm.
my branding photos on Instagram and some of my cover art. My
Mm-hmm.
hair was is golden and long and flowy, and
Mm-hmm.
I can remember specifically, I was able to take it out of a bun and just
Mm-hmm.
shake my hair and go.
Right.
And that did happen because my hair for years was like that, and I was able to shake it and just go and pull it out of a bun. That's all the styling I really had to do.
Mm-hmm.
So in that dream, I was just mesmerized over my hair. I was like, wow, my hair is so gorgeous. So I can remember going back up out of this basement up to the hill, and I was walking back down again, and I saw a girl singing in my spot in church. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, God, that's my spot.
Mm-hmm.
He said, if you don't do what I've called you to do, you will be replaced.
Wow.
Yes. And I was like, so, yeah, I mean, just that is like the worst thing you want to hear from
Yeah.
a child of God when you know singing is your gift and it's something He
Mm-hmm.
wants you to do for Him. That's just a nightmare to hear something like that. So I went back down in the basement and I looked in the mirror again, and the image I saw was a very swollen, huge stomach.
Mm-hmm.
My legs were skinny, they looked like sticks.
Mm.
My face was gray, swollen, like a real round face,
Uh-huh.
and had just kind of dull, patchy skin, and my hair was strings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I knew that that was a warning dream. And so later on, fast forward when I had my salon, I almost developed from my work habits, I almost developed Cushing's disease.
Oh.
Um, and if you've ever researched it, what you get when you have Cushing's disease is it's just a really bad thyroid disease, and a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
do. A lot of Americans have it.
Yeah.
But your face will turn what they call moon shaped. You'll get a buffalo hump on your neck,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
your body, your stomach will store cortisol, and I want to say it will eat the muscle in your legs. So that's why you get stick legs, and then your hair falls out in
Wow.
strings. Yeah. And then of course you have the skin issues that go along with it. So that almost happened to me. I would look in the mirror when I was at my sickest and noticed I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
a neck anymore. And if
Mm-hmm.
you watch my music video, I portray that. That's the
Mm-hmm.
image I'm portraying in my music video. And I have a lot of little videos that discuss each little detail. But I can remember looking in the mirror and my face would be, very swollen.
Mm-hmm.
I've posted pictures on Instagram to try to bring awareness of the stress hormone and cortisol issues. I have
Yeah.
lots of resources to try to help people in that area because I've lived it and I don't want to live that anymore. But the second
Yeah.
dream I had was this a very similar thing. I was in church, and our church had a new building, and I didn't even know about it. And there was a beauty salon in the church, and it was on Sunday, and they were just pulling me to be in there. And so that came later on, but I knew that was at the time when the hair industry was pulling at me to
Hmm.
go into the education field.
Yeah.
But I later learned the education field can be extremely dark in the hair industry. When you travel,
Really?
there's a lot
Mm.
of things
Mm.
that, yeah, it can be pretty dark. I didn't
Yeah.
know about. So thank God for his provision. He gave me warning dreams, and I took heed to those. But it took me seeing that one dream almost come to pass with me being that sick. And that's when that dream was reminded back to me. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Um, I'm seeing this dream fulfilled. God, please make a way of escape.
Well, that's why he gave you the dream, so that when it happened, you could remember, but wait a minute. Okay.
Yes.
I can't pretend like this isn't happening. Wow. You know, as somebody who I was diagnosed over the years with 3 different autoimmune diseases. One's a Graves' disease, um, which is a thyroid disease, and fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. And I currently am walking around this earth with not one symptom. God is so
Wow.
good. I do so much. I can't even believe that I'm able to do it. But I believe, your body does, it holds trauma, it holds stress. And if you're not careful and you don't change your lifestyle and you don't begin living for God's glory and not your own glory, I think a lot of people wouldn't be sick if they weren't trying so hard at things that really don't matter.
Yes, absolutely. It was my lifestyle that created that trauma from,
That's right.
the research that I've done on trauma and our
Yeah.
lifestyle and stress and how we respond to stress. Yeah, I
Why do you
created that.
why do you think that success was so important to you?
I really believe, looking back and asking God to heal me and show me what my problem was, because
Hmm.
success, it was an issue of not uh, feeling like I was important. That's what it all boiled down to. It was, and
Hmm.
because I had a shopping addiction along with needing to feel that appraisal. I'm a
Hmm.
word of affirmation person. So
Hmm.
when I do someone's hair, I am constantly getting word of affirmations.
Right.
Constantly. I'm getting
Right.
bragged on constantly. And whenever I would, use clothes as a way to get bragged on,
Hmm.
it was feeding that for me.
Yeah.
But what I didn't realize I was missing was that all that really mattered is that I was making God proud and my husband.
Hmm.
And if I do that, to me that's success. If I am making God proud and being in his will 100% completely, and me knowing it, knowing it's real, knowing it's not, I know when it's not. I know when I'm
Yeah.
in my purpose and when I'm not.
Yeah.
And so when I'm in that, and same with my husband, I know when I'm in my purpose and when I'm not, because he knows. So when I am making those 3 things feel complete or proud, and I know that I'm walking in it, I don't really care what anyone thinks of me. I could care less because I
That's
know
right.
I'm I'm walking in my purpose.
That's
So
right.
it makes me feel fulfilled. But before that, I it was just like a trap. I was getting all this praise and glory, and it was in that area. And now, it does nothing for me. I can get it, and I appreciate that person appreciates me, but it doesn't fulfill me.
That's right. There's a trend going around right now on Instagram Reels, where there's a thing that says, "I woke up and I liked me. Your like is extra." And I love that because that's really the way we should feel. If you wake
Yes.
up and you like you, it doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks.
No, and it's so freeing to be that way.
I bet at the time it was hard on your marriage before you came around. Was it hard
It
on your
was.
husband?
It was hard on my husband. I bought this historic home
Hmm.
without him wanting me to. So he did not want me to buy this. And I bought it anyway because that's just the kind of person I was at the time. If
Hmm.
I wanted
Hmm.
something, I got it. And so I really wanted this house, and bless his heart, he went along and he said he would never do anything like that again from now on.
Mhm.
And I'm grateful that he won't. It made him realize he needs to be in his purpose. It showed him he needs to be
That's
in his
right.
purpose as well
That's
as a
right.
husband.
Mhm.
So during that time, this move was so large and so hard. My husband ended up injuring his back as well as on his job. He cared for handicapped clients.
Mhm.
And so he injured his back. And during that time when he injured his back, I went ahead and got the salon ready fast. Now, mind you, we moved and we were working in this house trying to fix it up because it's 100-year-old house. And my husband, he likes things done right. And so he does not appreciate an older house, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Not that there's anything wrong with him. It's just to him, it's a lot
Hey,
of work.
you're preaching to the choir. I live in a house that part of the house is from the 1690s. So yeah,
Oh,
it's
wow. Yeah. It's just
it's
all,
amazing. It's amazing, but there's lots of stuff has to be done all the time. Yeah.
yes, and he's the kind of person he can't rest unless
Mhm.
everything's done. It's just the way his dad and mom raised him. You didn't
Yeah.
put off tomorrow what you could do today. That's just his nature. He will never be able to lose that because his mom and dad instilled that in him. He helped
Mhm.
his mom at a young age. He had a very sick dad, so it's just his nature to help and to serve and to do. So this
Mhm.
house was really difficult for him. We were working till like 2 a.m. every night trying to get it,
Wow.
yeah, trying to get it ready. And I finally got the salon done. And then he hurt his back.
Mm.
And so I moved in and told him, I said, I will take care of you. I'll take up the slack. I'll work extra. You
Mhm.
heal. You take your time to
Mhm.
heal because he hurt his back very bad. And it was pretty scary because we weren't set up for, him to have surgery, money, financially, the whole nine
Mhm.
yards.
Mhm.
So it was pretty traumatic on him, honestly. This whole house, this whole move, this whole experience was pretty traumatic. And once he started to heal, I told him, I said, why don't you just stay here and
Mhm.
help me with the house and with my business? Because I was that busy. I needed someone to go to the bank, someone to do my bills. I said, you could cook and clean because he's good at it. He doesn't like
Mhm.
it, but he's wonderful at it. And so, so he would rest during the day and heal up, and I would work during the day. And then at night, he would clean. So he would clean
Mhm.
the whole salon. He would take care of all of the bookwork, all of the bills, all of
Wow.
the cooking, all of the cleaning. So we literally lived two separate lives. We did not see each other. And we did
Wow.
that. Yeah, we did that for about a year. It was horrible. It was a nightmare because we never saw each other. And when we did, I was too tired. Because
Yeah.
I was around people all day long, talking to
Mhm.
8 to 10 different people, hearing their story. I'm very,
Mhm.
very introverted, so I was completely give out. He needs to talk. He's extroverted. He needs
Mhm.
to talk, and I was completely checked out. Had no
Wow.
space and time for him, so it was not a good time. We really realized that this wasn't working and this wasn't for us, and we needed a way out.
Yeah. Now you had told me earlier that God told you to pack everything up, and so you did. And I think originally your plan was to sell the place, but you still live in that house right now, right?
We do. We still live in it. And he told us that he would send the right people to buy this house. He told me and my husband both the same
Mhm.
thing at
Mhm.
different times, and that he would lead us to the next house.
Okay.
Um, and so we could put it on the market and sell it, you know, but that's not what God told us to do.
Okay. So you're
And
waiting for those people.
yes, we are,
Yeah.
because yes, we both have learned to trust God's voice. We've both learned to hear his voice. We've both learned to listen to his leading, and that's what we're waiting on. We are waiting on God to do it because I want to be where God wants me.
Amen.
That's where I
Eh,
want to be. Material things don't matter. And
uh-huh.
that's the thing that God showed me, we both have callings and
Mhm.
giftings, and in order to step into that calling and to use those giftings, we have to create space, and
That's right.
there has to be things put in place in order to step into that. And for me, material things do not matter. So
Yeah, and it's funny, I have this image. So here's this beautiful home that you bought, right? Large and beautiful, and it was expensive, right? And you've packed everything up and you're living this simple life within this big place. And it's kind of a beautiful image. And it itself is this image of what you're talking about, that creating boundaries and making space in your life, like that's giving you room to really live. And I'm
Yes.
sure to be creative too, right?
Yes, yes, yes. That's the whole reason I did it. Because
Yeah.
during those times, whenever we had this house, it was so large. I moved from, we had a single wide trailer. We moved from a single wide trailer to this, it's 3,000 square foot living space and
Hmm.
then 5,000 square foot total. And it was just completely overwhelming because
Yeah.
I didn't know how to decorate for a house that large. You can't take
Wow.
you can't take trailer pictures and put them in 10-foot walls. It just don't work.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
that was overwhelming in itself. So I was learning and I was seeing what I didn't need. And my husband tried to tell me, you don't need this, Erica. You don't need this big house. But in my
Yeah.
mind, I did, because I had never lived in one that large. Now my mom and dad built a house and it was a great size and, actually a good size house. But this one's a
Hmm.
lot bigger. But what I really saw was that, I don't need all these things that I thought I needed. And
Yeah.
so I, and the same with clothes. I told you I had a shopping addiction. I had so many clothes. There was no way I could ever wear them all. No way.
Hmm.
So I would get up in the mornings, usually, before when we lived in our trailer, and I could never make up my mind what I wanted to wear. So there was continually big piles of clothes everywhere because I would change my mind, throw it down, not
Hmm.
have, not taking the time to put it back, creating chaos and
Wow.
having, too many clothes to wash. So when I was in this house and I was run down and very sick, I am not kidding you. I wore the same 3 outfits all week because I did not care and have enough in me to find or pick out any clothes. So I
Wow.
would grab the first thing I found, put it on, wouldn't even hardly wear makeup. I might put a little mascara on, maybe a little blush or something. And my
Hmm.
hair definitely never really fixed it anymore after that. And that's how I lived every day because that's all I had in me. I didn't have enough room. So I thought, I was like, what's the purpose in all of these clothes if I don't have the time to pick them out? So
Yeah.
I really saw I don't need them and I'll have done great without them. So I really broke that addiction, figured out where that came from, the root cause of that,
Hmm.
broke that addiction. So I minimalized my closet during this healing time because I didn't want that to be a decision. It was in my way. That's how I saw it. That decision was in my way of
Yeah.
doing what God wanted me to do. And as well as my kitchen, I downsized and I basically use one pot and one cutting board and one knife. I mean, practically. So I have, I set my kitchen up to where if I want to be very minimal, so my whole house is very minimal. And that
Hmm.
is what has gave me the space between that and my journal of
Hmm.
making sure I'm doing these healthy habits. That has what has gave me the space to learn on my own as an independent artist to record an album on my own, send it to my producer, uh, produce the vocals on my own, do all the background vocals. I've been writing a very large book about my healing journey and how to
Hmm.
hear God's voice. I've
Hmm.
wrote 2 prayer books. So that is the only way that I was able to do those things. Is
It's
because of
just so beautiful. I mean, I keep picturing, I'm literally sitting in my podcast booth and I keep picturing this big old stone house, right, with all this room and boxes around like the perimeter, but like only the necessary things are being picked up and used, only the necessary clothes, only the one pan, and how God's just showing you, just like in the Bible. I mean, in the Bible, He gives us one step at a time. He gives us just enough for today.
mm-hmm,
Even with manna went bad after, if you took enough for 2 days, you couldn't use it. Like
yes,
there's this biblical principle that God's showing us about how important it is to be present with Him
yep,
in the now.
yes, yes, and
And I hear that in this transformation, and I can kind of see you and your husband. I think maybe the reason that you have to wait for whoever's coming is just so that you continue to walk this out, even within the big house. You don't go back to starting to put things up on the walls. You
no,
don't go back to getting, he wants to make sure. And then when he's sure, I feel like that's when the person's going to come and get the house.
Yeah,
That's,
and we have it set up to where, we live comfortably on one level. We basically live in a one bedroom, one
hmm
bathroom area, and we have,
hmm
a music room that we'll always want in the future. And then we
hmm
have, because we have six bedrooms in this house, but we've got
hmm
one bedroom that's just got everything packed up in it, and I don't even know that I'm gonna want and need that stuff. I've been so minimal, and like my bookshelf used to have decorations. Well, now it has all the books that I actually use. I use these
hmm
books. I
hmm
need them. So that's where I realized the Pinterest thing is not for me. I want my kitchen to function for me. So when I go there, yeah,
Yes, actually make
yes,
food in it.
yes, I go in there to cook for a purpose, and I don't need to be
Yeah,
fumbling and looking for things and knocking
yeah.
over pretty things. I want my kitchen to function for me. And I've learned the way when I do my to do my calling, step into my purpose,
hmm
chaos, I don't have room for chaos. I don't have room for dysfunction. I don't have room for things like that. So as
Yeah.
clean and tidy and as organized as I can be, that's when I really thrive. So
You
I
know,
kind of it's
it's
true.
crazy. We have a lot in common right now. I hadn't really thought about it when you were talking about the house in our pre-recording call, but we both left spaces where we had lots of decoration. I still decorate, so we don't have that much in
Yeah.
common.
Well, I
But
mean, my house is, but it's just minimal. I have like
yeah,
one very minimal.
but basically where we downsized, we got rid of the things that we didn't need, and we're in these spaces that are way smaller living. I'm living on the top floor of this home. It's a huge home, but I'm only living on the top floor. The addition is for my parents, and then we share the rest of the house for when we have family come over and things like that. So yeah, I never really thought about it. We're both kind of living in just one part of these big homes. I feel like, I don't know. I think it's like God has given us the opportunity. He's expanded our territory, but it's not the territory of physical things. He's expanded our territory of this open space that we have for him. And in
Yes.
meeting with him, then we can do what he's called us to do. And that's so
Yes.
cool. Like I started a podcast, you started doing an album. Like in our home,
Yeah.
we just started figuring it out on our own. I never
Yes.
really put that together. She's my kindred spirit.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're drawn to people like that. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it's like you have a zoom in moment on
Yeah.
people that are like that and are kindred spirited like that. And
I'm
like-minded
excited
people.
to, yeah, like-minded people. And I'm excited to see. Okay, so tell us more about your music. Tell us about how you did this album. You learned how to do everything. You're out there. I follow you on social media. You're out there going places. You're out there singing places. You're not just sitting at home trying. You're doing it. And it's amazing. And I'm very proud of what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Well, so how that really started was, hearing God, going through some inner healing. I talked about downsizing the house, making
hmm
it function for me because I knew if I was going to do any of these things, I had to change my life, had to change my habits, and I did. So after I had all of these things done, I closed my salon down as well. So I have a salon in this house that is closed. So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm living in this house that I saw me and my husband both pictured ourselves leaving. So we know it's just temporary. So I'm
hmm
working at a new location with new people at a resort
hmm
in an area where I live. So God has blessed me with the opportunity to do hair part time. I'm only
hmm
busy, truly busy July, August, and September. May, June, and October is sort of not, sort of busy, sort of not. So I have
hmm
those months to work on my music as well. So in the winters, after October, I'm completely done with hair. So
Wow.
I have complete time at home, November through all the way through April. And then I go back to work in May. And like I said, it's kind of dead. So I can do my marketing and things like that in the summer.
hmm
So 2019 was my first winter off. And I knew that if I was going to get these things done, write this book God told me to write, told me to not waste any time. He specifically told me that. So I
hmm
knew if I was going to do these things, I had to write out my schedule and get them done. And so that's when all that journaling started. And so what I was able to do, but I will admit, I was having a hard time letting go of some of my elderly clients.
No.
They, I love elderly, and that was the hardest thing I ever did in my life, was to tell them I can't do their hair anymore. But I knew that I was obeying God. And so at the time I still had those little elderly people, and I had my recording software. I already had it bought. I bought it in 2014. So I had it. I just didn't know how to use it.
Okay.
So, I knew at the time in 2019, there wasn't any courses online to learn how to do these kind of things that I was aware of. I looked, and there wasn't any. So I was like, God, you're just going to have to help me. I don't know how I'm going to do this other than I have the resources. I have the equipment. I have the time. You can show me how to use it. So I learned how to set up, and I started doing background vocals for my pastor, who he's got some really good music. It's awesome. So I recorded his background vocals and did that December and January and February. And then during February, and I was also, writing my book. So I had a schedule. I would get up, and I was kind of doing 12-hour days in a way, but I had time for my husband, time to exercise, time to cook and clean, things like that, things that were important. I prioritized. So when the pandemic happened, February, March, I was kind of excited, honestly, because I was like, I was excited selfishly for me, put it that way, that I would have zero distractions. I was not,
I get that.
yeah, I wasn't excited about what was happening. I was just grateful that I would have zero distractions, because, there's so many distractions that pull at our mind, and God, has made me very aware of this. I was like, wow, this is going to be a good thing. This is going to help people, because I know what it did for me to be able to slow down and stay home. I know how it helped me. It changed my life. So, I pray and I ask God, I was like, should I go ahead and close my salon now? And, well, he's saying, yes, I've told you to. I've already told you to close your salon, and he told me, he said, definitely close it. He said, and this is another thing. You don't want this pandemic fear in your home. They're going to bring it in your home, and it's going to exhaust you mentally, and it's going to take time. You're not going to be able to do these things I've called you to do. So I'm struggling with obedience, during this whole time. And so I make the decision. I tell them, I can't do you in the future as well. I'm sorry. I have to let you go. And I would, when I was praying, I would say, I let you go. And God really helped me and showed me, let it go. That's not you anymore. You're moving forward. You have other things to do. So that next day, I was able to completely vocally produce and execute my songs with complete confidence that I was doing it the right way. And what God showed me was, in that obedience, there is provision, there's protection. And because I was obedient and I had zero distractions like he told me to begin with, I was able to get that done. And I feel like I made up for 10 years worth of things during that pandemic, because I worked diligently. I would work 12-hour days. Like I said, I would have X amount of hours I would write in my book.
But this time it was for yourself and God's kingdom. It wasn't for the world.
Yes. And he was making up for lost times. I believe, I truly believe he restored all the years I lost when I was able to. Yeah. Because, that album, I wanted to record that in 2014. And I had tried in this house. I tried recording in 2016. And I could not slow down. I would try, I would mark my book off, but I just wasn't mentally there. And I tried again in 2017, and it never would happen. But
he was preparing you to be ready.
Yeah, I believe that.
And when you said he restored, you reminded me, I remember the day that I opened up the Bible to, I believe it's in Joel, where he says, I will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. And it just made me cry, because there were all these years. I'm 57, and I didn't really accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior until 20 years ago. So, you do the math. And so I was feeling horrible and grieving for all the years that I had not acknowledged God. And that's what I opened to. So he can do anything, but he'll take all this stuff and he'll restore it and let you move forward once you choose to do things for him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really believe that he did that for me. He restored me,
Yeah.
showed me, and also during that time, he gave me so many ideas and so many visions and showed me what I was fully capable of if
Hmm.
I would if I would do those things for him and not be distracted and not let distractions come in.
Yeah. It's crazy how many people that I have talked to doing the podcast that the pandemic was a reset button or a platform or springboard. It was this moving into a new thing. If you let it be, you had to
Yeah.
be obedient. You had to be listening for God. You had to be spending time in the Word and worship and stuff. But if you let it be, it was this time to do a new thing, and it was actually in the weirdest way, it was this gift to everybody. I think a lot of people experience the gift of,
Mhm.
spending more time with their family and maybe clearing out some of the things they didn't need in their life
Right.
because all they could get were the basics. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
I know, and I felt so prepared. I really did. I felt
Hmm.
so prepared because I had already cleaned out, already
Yeah.
went through things.
Yeah.
Um, and I already, like, set boundaries,
Yeah.
I was already accustomed to not eating out because I had
Hmm.
set up new healthy lifestyle habits of cooking at home.
Yeah.
Same with working out at home. I was used to that. I was used to we don't really go and visit people. We don't have nightlife. We live in a rural area in the mountains.
Hmm.
So we don't have nightlife. We don't have shopping. It's really far to go.
Yeah.
So we go visit my mother-in-law on Sundays, and that's really kind of it, or maybe
Hmm.
eat out with my sister every now and then. But
Hmm.
so I felt so prepared. I felt like I had already done these things. I already had my cooking habits. I mean, I
Yeah.
literally, I could go in there and cook and not have to think about it because it's a habit, it's a routine. So it's same with my exercise. It was already built up. I didn't have to build any new habits. All I had to do was walk into what God told me to do. And
That's right.
I
Oh,
just felt,
he,
I know I felt
oh,
so blessed, so glad I listened to him.
yeah, that's all we have to do. I mean, really, it's that simple. God doesn't not tell us. He tells us all the time. We ignore, or we convince ourselves it wasn't God, or we don't slow down long enough or get quiet enough to hear what he's saying. But he has a plan and a purpose for every situation. He's God. He knows the big picture.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think it's amazing what you're doing, and I again, I feel kindred in that I would rather put aside what other people think, what the world wants me to do or look like or buy, and just put my focus on, hey, God, how can I honor you and give you glory? And what are the things that you gave me? What are the talents or the passions, the dreams you gave me that I can join you in your work and I can share you with other people. And with everyone it's different, but he gives everyone has a purpose. Everyone has talents. He gives everyone dreams and passions. And if we're willing to let him be the one in charge of that, life is really exciting. Like, I don't know why people think being Christians is boring. It's not. You're doing it wrong. It's not boring.
Hmm.
It is amazing.
Yes, and it will keep you on your toes.
Yeah, and how
Yes.
beautiful that he gave you every step along the way to prepare you perfectly.
I know he did, and it blows my mind. So he taught me during that, those times
Hmm.
that I need really and truly to ultimately seek him in
That's
everything.
right.
No,
That's right.
even in my music career, I don't have to listen to everything everyone tells me to do.
Hmm. Hmm.
I take that information and I say, okay, God, what do I do? What do you want me to do?
Hmm.
And I'm learning that. And the same with my music video. I did a music video. So I was able to, record all of my music 2020, 19, 19 and 20, went back
Hmm.
to work, and I was able to kind of focus on Well, focus on work. 'Cause it was a new atmosphere for me. So I'm real big on, I've learned these mistakes of not doing too much. So I knew I was at work. I had to focus on work. That's just the way it
Mm-hmm.
was. I had to
Mm-hmm.
focus on work and my husband. I didn't really do any marketing at that time. Um, I was singing a little bit on Facebook, but
Mm-hmm.
I cut that out. Told a pastor in the county, I said, I'm sorry, I can't help on your Facebook right now. My job and my husband is my number one priority right now. So, and he thought that was very respectable. So I was
Mm-hmm.
grateful it didn't make him mad. But I've learned to put things in perspective and prioritize. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, in 2020, the winter of 2020 and 2021, I spent learning about the music business because I didn't know how to put my music out. I had no clue, no resources,
Mm-hmm.
nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe God led me to the right people, learned me how to put these
Yeah.
resources out. And so I started marketing because I felt like, okay, I got to start marketing this album. It's going to start coming out. And I learned that a music video can really help you. So I said, okay, God, if I need a music video, will you just lead me to the right person? And
Mm-hmm.
he did. He led me to Amber Higgins. And it's a beautiful story how he led me to her. And because of obedience, I had already learned obedience, and I obeyed and did some things that he said. He
Mm-hmm.
arranged for me to fly to Texas, and I made a music video and was able to tell some of my story through that music video. And
That's awesome.
it was amazing. And there was
Yeah.
zero chaos in that event. Everything was lined up to a T. It was just,
Mm-hmm.
that was beautiful to see. There was no chaos in that at all. Everything
Yeah.
just went bam, 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 bam. Here I was back home.
Well, that's amazing. And I'm going to provide in the show notes ways for people to follow you on social media, for them to listen to your music and see your music video and all that good stuff. And once they're doing that, when you get to the point where you publish your book, they'll already be following you so they can read your book. I want to ask you one more question. This is my favorite question I ask everybody that comes on because I just love the answer so much. If you could give your younger self any advice, what would that be?
To embrace who you are, you just embrace it. You just appreciate every single unique person around you, every single unique gift that
Mm.
has been placed inside of you, every unique person that God has put in your life. You just embrace them to the absolute fullest, and you appreciate it and enjoy it to the absolute fullest. And don't you dare ever shut down.
Wow, that's great advice.
Thank
That's great
you.
advice. I am so glad that we got a chance to talk. And honestly, Erica, you're a new friend of mine, so I'm sure we'll be talking again. I am very grateful for your story and for your being willing to share it and take the time for the listeners. I believe that anyone out there listening, you'll benefit from following her. Like I said, take a look at the show notes and listening to her music and seeing what comes next. When somebody is laid down their own will and chosen the will of God and decided to be obedient and is using the gifts God's given them, it's an amazingly beautiful thing. And that's what she's doing. So I'm so glad to know you and so glad for the time we had together.
Me too. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you and appreciate you and with what you're doing with the being grateful and the gratitude. It's incredible.
Well, again, I'm just listening to God just like you were, and trying to help people understand that even in the tough stuff, He's there, and that's what we should be focused on.
Yes.
His
And
good,
yes.
His goodness. Yeah,
Yes, and there are resources out there. If we need them and we want to grow, there are resources. Just pray, and He will
yeah,
show you what to watch. He'll show you what to listen to, and He'll show you what to not watch and listen to.
yes, He will. Yes, He will.
Yes.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'm sure I'll be talking to you again soon on here as well as in our private life. Again, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. You have a very sweet spirit, and you can tell that you're obeying God, and He is just going to continue to use that obedience to share the goodness of who He is with more and more people.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Okay,
So
have a great
grateful.
day.
You
Yeah.
too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Hey, so I just want to thank you so much for spending your time with me. And I want to challenge you to go out today and to just take notice and to stop and really look around and find at least one good thing, one thing to be thankful for. You know, if you do that today, you're going to find so many more things tomorrow without even trying. Because once you start, you begin to see what's always been there. And if you need a refill, you can come join me again for another cup. Make sure to subscribe and have an awesome day and go be grateful.